Welcome viewers to the series of lectures on ancient India, and this time around we are going to talk about the Post Mauryan period. Post Mauryan period in terms of timeline should be say 2nd century BCE to around say 3rd or 4th century CE, just prior to the beginning of the Gupta period or the Gupta Empire, which is supposed to have begun around 320 CE. So, it is these 4 to 500 years that we are going to talk about, and in this particular lecture we are going to track the religious changes that marks this period in terms of transformation, because the larger trajectories of economic and social changes that were already continuing ever since say the 6th century BCE in North India continued unabated. In fact, they further intensified. For example, if you look at the process of urbanization that had been triggered ever since 6th century BCE in North India, all across the post Mauryan period as well, it continues. Similarly, if you look at the expansion of agriculture to new areas and settling down of people in new areas, that also continues ever since the earlier periods. So, there are quite a few trajectories of continuity, in fact intensification, that this period marks. Similarly, if you look at the trade and commercial situation, this period actually further intensifies the transactions, not only in terms of overland transaction, but even maritime transactions with the European world. So, there are quite a few trajectories of change, particularly in economic and social terms, that continue unabated, that in fact intensified in this period. But in this lecture, we are going to track specifically the changes or continuities that marks this period in terms of religion and religiosity. So, it is here that we will see that there are quite a few trends, there are quite a few developments that are characteristic of this period, that are characteristic of the post Mauryan period, and it is something which runs across religions. So, for example, if we say that in the post Mauryan period there are there is a multiplicity of sects that we get to see in one religion, say in Buddhism, say Hinayan and Mahayana, then it is not restricted only to Buddhism, but even in Jainism, the other contemporary religion, we get to see the same kind of a trend. So, even in Jainism we have Shwetambar, Digambar and several other kind of belief systems and the ideas underpinning it, which get seen in this period. Similarly, in the Vedic Hinduism, again we find say Shivism, Vaishnavism, they become more prominent, and it is people's affiliation to either of the two, which is coming across in this period as something very very visible. So, this division of big organized religions, or I would say this transformation of big organized religions into smaller sects, is something that characterizes the religious development of this period, and this is something that you can see on your slide, that it is not restricted only to sects, but also there are several subsects within a sect, and people are getting subscribed to this multitude multitude sects and subsects. Of course, the umbilical cord with the big organized religion, that remains, that is never severed in any drastic fashion. But it gets visible through sects and subsects. For example, if you look at the contemporary accounts, people would identify themselves with Shaivism or Vaishnavism. That does not mean that they have moved far away from Vedic Hinduism. Of course, the umbilical connect in terms of genealogy of gods, goddesses and so forth, that continues. There is no rejection of the basic tenets of say Hinduism or Buddhism or Jainism as such, but there are specific emphasis which appear as very prominent, and that leads to segregation of the adherents into various sects and subsects. Of course, it could have led to some kind of strife, some kind of competitive relationship between them, but that is other side of the story. Now, beginning our discussion, say from say in the case of Buddhism, we get to see that in the post Mauryan period, fourth Buddhist council was held. This was 2nd century CE in Kashmir, and it is here that a major schism in Buddhism or Buddhist Sangh was recognized. So, that means that there already was a demand to practice religion in a certain way as opposed to some other ways in which it might have been carried out so far. And over a period of time, this now in the post Mauryan period gets recognized. So, it is now established that there will be something called Heenyan and something called Mahayana that we will see. So, when we say Heenyan, that represents the orthodox version of Buddhism, the religious stipulations, beliefs, tenets, etc., with which Buddhism had been surviving so far. But as is usual for any religious order and its adherents, and as the number of adherents of a particular belief system or religion multiply, they expand, obviously some kind of specificities in terms of belief system also emerge, and that is precisely what is happening here as well. So, the orthodox version coalesced into a distinct identity that we now call Heenyan in 2nd century CE onwards, and those who were pro-changers, those who wanted some new ideas to be injected into the way in which they had been practicing Buddhism so far, little bit of tweaking was required. For example, the idea of worshipping the Buddha as a deity. Now, it is believed that Buddha himself did not want to be worshipped as a deity, or he is silent about it, but by the time we reach the post Mauryan period, the Buddha emerges as a deity. So, there are figurines of Buddha, and it is to be it is elevated to the level of being a deity. So, a worship tradition developed in institutional form. So, those who perhaps were against this deification continued to be in Heenyan, whereas those who wanted the Buddha to be deified, to be worshipped as a deity, started referring to themselves as Mahayana. Similarly, it is not only the singular deification of Buddha that was an issue. The concept of Bodhisattva and the last bodhisattva or the would be bodhisattva is also designated as Maitreya. So, these are some of the things, the concept of bodhisattva, the deification of Buddha, etc., must have been simmering over a period of time, and by the time we reach 2nd century CE, it became irreconcilable to contain these ideas in the singular form of Buddhism. So, this sectarian identity gets visible here. So, this is a trend that is visible not only in Buddhism, but in other contemporary religions as well. Now, as we discussed earlier, that it is not only about Hinayan and Mahayana and so forth, there are several other belief systems, and as it happens generally that there are minor beliefs or beliefs with very few adherents or very nuanced kind of an idea which some people adhere to. Others are somewhat oblivious of that, or they do not care much about those nuances and so forth. So, they also lead to several kind of subsects or emergence of subsects within a particular sect. So, that was also a reality that we get to see. We have Mahasanghika sect, for example, whose presence is attested through inscriptions, say at Amravati, Nagarjun Konda, Karle, etc. Now, these places have brilliant specimen of Buddhist architecture in the form of stup and some inscriptions related to it, or there are some votive inscriptions, there are several other items as part of archaeology. So, they are major centers of Buddhism, and at these centers we get to see a Mahasanghika sect becoming quite visible and prominent. Right now, historians kind of regard this Mahasanghika sect as some kind of a forerunner of the Mahayana school. So, the ideas that underpinned Mahayana school, emergence of Mahayana school, is something that is contained in Mahasanghika sect. So, that has been there, that had already been there, this set of ideas, and over a period of time, as we said earlier, that it got recognized, and it happens to be Post Mauryan period where it got recognized in the Buddhist Council. And here they adopted the existing rules of discipline of Vinay Pitak. We all know that of the 3 Pitaks, Vinay Pitak contains the codes of behavior and rules and so forth, the disciplining aspect of monastic life, etc. So, they adopted the existing discipline of Vinay Pitak to their doctrine and simultaneously introduced some new ones. And it is the introduction of these new doctrines that we have already alluded to earlier, deification of Buddha, the concept of bodhisattva, etc., the concept of Maitreya, who is yet to come, kind of belief system. It is these ideas that revolutionized the Buddhist Sangha. Now, there are other trappings of this that we might end up discussing sometime in the middle of these 2 lectures about post-modern religion and religiosity. But just to add that Chaityaks, for example, were one of the sects of Mahasanghika. So, here you get to see we have Mahayana, which we formally know as a recognized sect into a recognized sect of Buddhism. And we also discussed that there was a set of ideas, religious belief system, which actually underpinned this Mahasanghika, or this Mahayana, that is Mahasanghika, and then we also have Chaityaks who were one of the sects of Mahasanghika. So, there are some set of believers within the umbrella of Buddhism who broadly identify themselves as Mahasanghika, but they had a sub-sect identity as well in the form of being Chaityaks. So, Chaityaks are the ones who propagated the doctrine that one could acquire great merit by creation, decoration and worship of Chaityas. Now, Chaityas, as we all know, that Chaityas and stupas are different expressions, different architectural expressions and variants as part of the range of Buddhist architecture that we get to see. Now, here are a set of believers who believe that by creating a Chaitya, by decorating it or by worshipping of Chaityas, one could acquire religious merit. Now, such ideas were not there at the time of the beginning of Buddhism, say around 6th century or 5th century BCE, but by the time we reach Post Mauryan period, of course, these ideas are very much there, and it is these ideas that are feeding into what we know as formally recognized sect of Mahayana. Now, there could be economic angle to it, there could be sociological angle to it, there could be philosophical or idea angle of it. That is a different matter, but what got Mahayana clicked in this time, in this period, of course, are these set of ideas which allowed Mahayana to synchronize itself, to be in sync with the increased set of adherents, with the or it expanded its base to new I would say professions that people are entering into in trade, commerce, merchant activities, artisanal activities, masonry and so forth. And please remember, and that is why it is important to never lose sight of facts that characterize this period in other domains. For example, towards the beginning of the lecture, I did allude to the fact that urbanism is something which continues unabated in the Post Mauryan period. So, if you look at the Post Mauryan map of India, you will find more urban centers present on the map as distinct dots. They are expanding to new areas. The areas where there were no cities in the earlier period now are having quite a few cities, habitation centers and so forth. Urban centers, as we all would understand, will have non-agricultural occupations and pursuits, for example, masonry, for example, artisanship, pottery making, or there are several other kinds of trade and merchant related activities. So, there are people who are engaged in this, and we have evidence that trade, commerce, urbanism, artisanship and so forth, sculpturing, they are at a high in the Post Mauryan period. So, if you look at the material remains of a city which existed say even in 6th century BCE, and the same city is existing say in the Post Mauryan period, for example, say Pataliputra or Kashi or such cities which were old cities, and they have seen what is happening in 6th century BCE, what is happening in the Mauryan period, and what they are also thriving cities in the Post Mauryan period. So, archaeologists have compared the material richness of this period with earlier period, and post Mauryan material richness is certainly more than that of the Mauryas or the period prior to it. So, what it tells us is that urban activity and urban pursuits, they are at a high, they are doing well, right. And so, it is safe to presume that different urban related activities or occupations and people engaged in it are also perhaps benefiting from it in economic terms. So, there is greater material prosperity that the post Mauryan period is identified with, and there is also expansion of social groups. So, there are more social groups coming up, quite a few of them occupational groups, others could be caste group and so forth, but they have a distinct identity, they have some kind of their own collective identity, and the grammar of their behavior is specific to a particular identity and so forth. So, they are referred to in the contemporary texts as distinct occupational groups, distinct caste groups or Varna group and so forth. So, that is also expanding, and new occupational groups or social groups are emerging, and these religions have to bring about some changes in order to keep them hooked to their tenets. And obviously, the changed material circumstances would require or would give rise to different kinds of belief systems and so forth, and some changes which is more suited to the transformed times could be welcomed by these people. So, by dividing itself into different sects, now it is not done in a planned way, but historically if you telescope the entire process, you would get this sense that by multiple sectarian identities, the same set of Buddhist or Jain or Vedic Hinduism, it continued. So, people got associated with a particular sect, and thereby they are in the larger fold of big religious identities, say Vedic Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism and so forth. So, as we were talking about the Chaityaks, what we get to see here is that this increased material prosperity visible in the urban dwellers and increased number of social groups in urban setting now are finding a set of belief, the Chaityaks affiliated to Buddhism, more amenable. So, it is more palatable. It appealed to the rich merchants and traders. Why? Because by giving some donations, by looking after a Chaitya, or by creating a Chaitya, these traders could earn religious merit. So, all they are doing is to give donations, and they had good money, and they could dispense with it, and for that they did not have to undergo some kind of a rigorous monastic life or a very rigorous set of discipline that they had to adhere to. So, commoners, householders, they earned beautifully, engaged in urban pursuits, and yet earning religious merit, and therefore, in this sense it added to the popular appeal of Mahayana Buddhism. This is not to say that the orthodox form did not exist, they continued, but this change in form of sects and subsects is something that helped them to be in sync with the transformed times better and accounted for say continuation of Buddhism. The other part we will deal with in the second part of this lecture. Thank you.